So welcome. I'm just going to ask you, Katie, as the local girl, to kick us off and tell us about your experience with breast cancer.
So I was diagnosed in November 2020 with triple negative breast cancer. I am third generation breast cancer as well, with my mum and my grandmother diagnosed too. So they're all well, except my nan did pass away just from old age. I had a 4-month-old at the time who is now 2.5. I noticed a lump when I was about 34 weeks pregnant, but just put it down to getting ready to breastfeed and have a baby and hormones and that sort of thing. It wasn't until she was about that 4 months old that the aggressiveness of it grew quite large. So it was about 10 centimetres in total size, over 4 or 5 lumps. So it was increasingly uncomfortable. I was breastfeeding successfully. There was no issues or concerns in that aspect. And then finally went and got it checked out, and turned out to be triple negative breast cancer. So I went to Peter Mac in Melbourne for referral because of the family history. My mum and grandmother were treated up there, and I just wanted to keep it all in line so that if they needed to ever look back on anything, they had it all there. And then had treatment down here at the Southwest Cancer Centre. Yeah.
Just before we go to Iris, when you were diagnosed with triple negative, know that I'm going to bust you, whatever you say, but did you Google it, triple negative?
The breast surgeon who gave me my diagnosis said, do not get on Google. Who doesn't get on Google? So I did Google it, but I was actually directed to the BCNA website. So
yes,
win-win. She actually explained it quite well, and in all honesty, I had no idea all the different types of breast cancers out there anyway. All I knew from her was that it's an extremely aggressive form of cancer to get. So I didn't want to go down a rabbit warren of finding too much information. There was going to be an information overload anyway, so I kept it to a minimum, checked that out, and then I was instantly connected with the breast care nurse anyway, so I sort of didn't have to do too much. Yeah.
Because I think it's always very interesting, particularly with triple negative. It's people tend to, and family members tend to start looking, and then it's very frightening. So any time that the Google sends them to us, I think is a good outcome. So Iris, your experience?
Thank you. I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 7 years ago, HER2 positive. And when I was diagnosed, the cancer was already spreaded to my spine, bones and liver. And in some stage I was so sick that my daughter was 3 years old there, around 3 years old, and her kinder was across the road of our house, and I couldn't even take her to kinder. I could barely walk. And needless to say that it was very confronting, and I felt scared and overwhelmed. But at the same time, something in me knew that how I want to relate to it is to look at myself as a whole human being, and not just to see myself as having cancer, but to look at all the aspects of who I am, also the emotional aspect and the mental aspect. I was aware that the word healing comes from the word whole, which is body, mind, soul, and spirit. And I felt that I needed to seek ways to make my mind into my ally and not into my enemy. And that made a huge difference for me in walking this path.
We talked before about these different emotional feelings about wanting to come to a group like this. I am sure that with living with metastatic disease adds a whole other element of wanting to be in a room with people. Can you kind of describe to everyone how you feel about when you want to come in to a network like this?
Yeah, of course. I feel that there is a constant want and don't want. It's like you want to seek for help and assistance, but there were parts in me that I didn't want to identify with this woman that has breast cancer. And I felt, I want to be part of a group, I don't want it. So there was this coming and going. But I have to say that when I was brave enough to say, all right, Iris, take yourself and just see what there is out there, I felt very moved from being a part of a community. And I think that being a part of a community really reminds you what we tend to know, but we also tend to forget, that we are not alone, that we are not walking this path by ourselves, and that there are many other women that are strong and beautiful and can share their own story and support you by just knowing that they were going through that as well and getting comfort from it and inspiration from it. And that was very meaningful for me. Even now, hearing your speech, it was like, it moved me. So thank you.
Pleasure. I'm very lucky to be inspired by you all every day. Katie, what, on reflection now, back to that very moment of diagnosis and given the family history, what was helpful for you and maybe what was not so helpful for you? I told you I'd throw you in some curveballs.
Yeah, I know. Probably the biggest helpful thing for me was, I always knew it was inevitable that I would probably end up with breast cancer just because of the family history. Like, even though there's no genetic linkage, there's no BRCAs, there's absolutely nothing in there yet that they found that's linked us. I probably went into it a bit more headstrong, going, no, Nan and Mum, they've all been fine. We'll get through this next bit. The biggest thing for me was that my mum come and moved in with us at that time, which was, we needed it because we had Eloise, who was only four months old, and Adeline was 3 at the time. So for me, it was that support network that was the biggest thing. You need it if you can rally it, or if it's there offered to you as well. The biggest challenge in that was, and I say this, other people may have heard me talk about this before, was being diagnosed wasn't the fact that I was told I had breast cancer, it was the fact that I wasn't going to be able to breastfeed anymore. So my connection to my baby was my biggest fear. I don't know if anyone finds this, but going to try and bottle feed a baby after breastfeeding them is the most awkward thing in the world. And I didn't want to have to do that, so I couldn't even do the first few bottles. I said to my husband, you're in charge of this. But then it was okay. So that was my initial reaction, was, oh my God, my baby. So I got diagnosed, taken into the breast care nurse's office at Peter Mac, and I broke down then. That was the thing. So it wasn't the fact that I was told I had breast cancer. That was my biggest challenge to get over, which we got over it. We went to the next phase, and Eloise knew no different. She loves her food, so whichever way form it comes, she was happy with. So, that aspect was my biggest challenge, but it's that support that you can get if it is there. Otherwise, allowing people to come in and support you is another big thing, and it is a challenge in a sense too. It's letting go of how you run your household and allowing people to come in and do that for you as well. So I was fortunate that Mum does things the way I like them done, probably because she taught me how to do it. So it wasn't a big change in that sense, and I loved having my mum there. Like, who wouldn't? Yeah.
Did your husband like having your mum there?
He does actually, because they get in the kitchen and they talk plants and they talk cooking, and so they get along really well. Mum doesn't get under your feet or anything. She potters in the background. She'll do what needs to be done. She sleep trained Eloise for me, which was great. She's the old school. She will settle herself to sleep, and you're like, no, she won't. Took it a whole day. So she's done that with both my girls, so it's been really, really good in that sense. But no, they do get along, and he appreciates her help. It allowed him to be able to go to work and maintain routine and structure in his day-to-day. He had that outlet of being able to go to work and not have to think about what was happening at home too, which men seem to be able to do that quite well. So it was fine in that sense.
And Iris, what about you? What's been helpful? What hasn't been? What's been the hardest?
The hardest was that we didn't have our family here. I came to Australia from Israel 20 years ago, so we didn't have our family here. But few family members flew. They've done shifts and they came to support me, even few friends. And I found helpful to be part of a community. We are part of the Steiner School in East Bentley, and that's a very strong and very warm community. So almost every day when I was opening my door, there was food there, or cookies, or baked goods, or a letter, or a crystal, or just something that says, hey, we are with you, we love you, you are supported. And I was always saying that whenever I was opening a box with food or a pot with some soup, I wasn't only nourished by the food, I was also nourished by the love that I felt that came from those boxes and those pots of food. Another thing that was very helpful for me was starting a daily practice of mindfulness and meditation. As I said, I felt that being diagnosed with cancer brought even more to my awareness how much the mind and the heart are playing a big, big part of how I'm able to cope and respond to my crisis. And starting a daily practice was almost like having an island, something that I can come back to again and again and again, that I knew that it's something under my control that I can practice and do. Because when we experience a stage 4 cancer diagnosis or any cancer diagnosis, I think that one of the most significant things that we experience is being robbed from control. We don't trust our body. And there is so much anticipation and uncertainty if the treatments are working or not. And having this thing that I can come back to was really helpful.
It's interesting. I remember very early on in COVID when we were all, curfews of 8 p.m, which is kind of weird to even think about it now, don't you think? But I think Victorians are traumatised and we have a long, long road ahead of us. But I remember one of the women living with metastatic disease said, do you know what? I know this seems really selfish, but I feel like for the first time, everyone now understands my uncertainty that I live with every day.
Yeah. Uncertainty is a big, big thing.
Yeah. Just going to have a moment. She was a great woman. But, one of the things we know is a challenge for people with stage 4 metastatic is that there is great treatments that are coming forward and, much hope and anticipation of access to new drugs. How do you kind of talk to people about your diagnosis? Because I know, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but people will say, oh my God, you look great. And, that kind of is confrontational for you to go, well, actually, I'm living with this disease forever. So thanks. It's always me you have to get the tissues for, no one else. It's a bit of a problem when that happens. So how do you kind of communicate your disease to people that will help them to understand and for you to feel understood?
I actually feel that it's an opportunity for me to show people that you can live with metastasized breast cancer and even thrive to it. Of course, I don't know what the future is bringing. No one knows, if to be honest. And for me, it's actually an opportunity to inspire people and to show them that that's possible. And I see myself as a cancer thriver and not as a cancer survivor. And I think that it's very important just to see that that's possible. And again, also, I always go back to there, living with this uncertainty and being okay with it, living the moment more, and that was part of the opportunity in the crisis for me, is living life more fully. And And I think that always dealing with what is easier than dealing with what if. You know, what if, what if, what if. I've been to my funeral already so many times, and you know what?
Do people say nice things?
Oh, of course. I want to die only once. I don't want to keep on dying while I'm living.
Wow, that's very powerful, isn't it? So, Katie, we know that fear of the breast cancer coming back is real for people after a diagnosis. How is it real for you? How do you feel about recurrence?
I don't know if there's a denial about it, but I don't want to allow that in. I don't want to let it impact living. So there's definitely a fear. I think the type of breast cancer, you hit a 5-year rate and then you're the same level as the other types of survival. But I think in my head, because I got through treatment, and I say this relatively unscathed, it's the post-treatment issues that rear their head all the time, that because I responded so well to the chemo and the radiation and ticking the goals that I'm supposed to tick, I don't even know how, why, what. I just get told, yes, you are. That it's not a top of mind thing for me. And I think when I first finished, and it's that initial, the word remission, I didn't know how to take that. I was like, what does remission mean? Do I want this? Does it mean that, okay, now you've finished everything and now what is the biggest hurdle to get over? And I thought it would take me months to be, no, I'm living now, I don't have to look back at this and what have you, and potentially it took us a little bit with my family and my husband. I said, let's not go and buy that land yet. Give us a couple of years, get through this stage, and then we'll go and do it. But how long do you do that for before you go, no, let's do it? You can go and get your cows, let's go and plan and build a house and that sort of thing. So it was the times that I would think would be when I'm laying with the girls, when Adeline, I've created a rod for my back, as the old mums say. She wants someone to lay with her, and it's usually me. And I'm going to keep doing it because how long does it last for? And you'd be laying there thinking, oh, she starts school next year. She's got to get through kinder, and will I be there for that? And I think I only let myself lay there 5 times and think that. And then it was like, no, I'm going to be there for her, and I'm going to be there when she starts high school. So for me, the way I process is, no, we're going to be there. Let's not let that sit into your head. Move forward with it. Yeah, there is a little fear, but I just wait for my next checkups, get to those points. So,
so you said it's the other things that rear their heads. What have been the other things for you?
Or probably leading on to one of the other questions. So I've had issues with reconstruction. I had a single mastectomy after my chemo, so I had neoadjuvant chemotherapy, had a mastectomy and then an expander inserted at that time, and radiation to follow. So then March last year I actually had the expander out and an implant put in, and it all worked well, healed, everything like that, and then 10 weeks later I got an infection that put me into hospital and a surgery to take the implant out, to clean it out, flush out what the infection was and pop it back in, but it decided it didn't want to stay in there, and it broke through. So that came out, and now I'm just left with a little bit of fat in there. They did a bit of fat grafting from the implant exchange, and now I've been having other infections pop up in there as well, so just recently, so I'm due for another scan on Thursday just to make sure there's nothing too bad going on. So it's those sort of things that pop up, and it's the pain from it. So this side's had 4 surgeries on it in 12 months. So your pectoral muscle, mine was cut, so you've then got your functionality in that movement and that sort of thing as well, and it's continuing on with those things, and then you have I can't bring myself to get back into the type of exercise I used to do before that. And I don't want to. I think I've just hit that age. I don't want to do that anymore. Give me the Pilates and the yoga and the easier ones. So it's finding that momentum to get back into those sort of things. So, but it's then finding the complementary therapies to help you continue on and move on. So whether it be, I like sort of the traditional medicines and Eastern therapies and that kind of thing as well. But then there's osteos and these are, you were talking before about the costs, and they're the ones that I got rid of the extras before I even got diagnosed because it was a waste of my money. Now I'm like, maybe I should have it for that whole $17 I get back for that one appointment. So no, I don't want it again, but they're the additional costs that happen as you move on, and a lot more than what I had previously. So even lymphedema and oncology massage, oncology exercise classes, and there are aspects that you can access, but it's those things moving forward from that treatment that affects you physically and emotionally that are your added costs. I didn't find too much of an impact at that time, so yeah.
And how are you feeling about, given so much surgery on that one side, about your body image? Do you really look at yourself in the mirror, or do you only walk past and glance?
No, I'm not bothered. I'm not... I probably should I don't take too much care factor in how I look. You
look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I went from a G cup before all of this, so I was stoked that this side got a reduction at the same time as a mastectomy, because I always wanted to get a breast reduction after I had the kids and they were a bit older, so a bit of a positive out of it. I got the good boob done. So
Raylene says her boob on that side will always be 22, and she's pretty happy with that.
Well, I couldn't tell you what it looked like before it even, on the process to becoming a G cup. So my posture's unbelievable now compared to what it was. But it's not what I wanted, and when it first had to get taken out, I was mortified because it looked so good with the implant in there, and I was so happy. But now it just looks like a chicken thigh, and it's just but every specialist I've said to, I have my jokes, and they always go, I've seen worse. And it's yeah, but this is my worse.
Yeah, exactly. So dismissive.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I look at it and go, well, it could be worse. But it hasn't necessarily affected my body image. I don't like wearing prosthetic. It weighs a ton. I haven't gone and searched for a better one yet because I just don't care. I thought I would. I thought I would be, no, I've got to be symmetrical, but I'm not bothered anymore at all.
That's a sign of a confident woman. So, now, Iris, we're going to go somewhere where not everyone wants to go, but I'm very grateful that you're happy to. We're going to lift the duvet off. So, partnerships can go through enormous roller coasters. Some thrive, some don't survive. Talk me through, first of all, in terms of your partnership and your family, how being diagnosed with stage 4 has impacted that, what's worked, what hasn't. And also I'm very keen for you to share with us about sex and how that's been impacted.
First of all, I'm one of the lucky ones. I have an amazing relationship with my husband. We are always good in communicating. I'm a counselor, that's what I do. I needed to teach him to do it as well, I had no other choice. He was very, very supportive and very helpful. Saying that, of course, you go through a roller coaster of feelings and emotions, and how, as you said before, how you feel about yourself and how he is with that. We have a private joke. He calls me a Barbie doll because I have no nipples, and he says that's how I look now.
There's worse things to be called, I'm sure.
Yes. When I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, I was 44, and going through long chemotherapy kicked me immediately into menopause. So I remember one morning getting dressed and having these hot flashes all the time. And my husband said something, I don't even know what he said, but I just started to say, you don't understand, I'm hot all the time. I feel hot all the time. I'm so warm and I'm sweaty and it's terrible. And I had a meltdown. I did allow myself to have meltdowns with him and also within myself. That really helped. And talking about sex as something that is a bit more challenging to talk. I think that I didn't hear a lot about dried vaginas and things that you do experience after long treatments, but this is part of what I experience, and we just find our ways.
Have you got any hot tips? What I generally find after we've been...
doTERRA coconut oil is a hot tip. Yeah, really helpful and natural and helps. And yeah, just communicating that it's not that I don't love you, honey, but I need it less now. And also understanding that there are many ways for intimate relationship. Also spooning each other when I don't have hot flashes is, a great way. And I know that might sound a bit maybe strange, but I would say that I feel that it's important to make, and that's for me, that's the honest thing for me, that if in the past sex is something that I just wanted, now I feel that I need maybe to make an effort for it, but if I notice myself after having that, I feel closer to him, I feel that I love him more, I feel that the connection is there more. So I know that it's strange to talk about sex as something that you need to make effort for it, but I feel that almost like going to the gym or doing something else that requires effort, after you do it, there is something else that appears in the relationship and in the communication. So that's my intake about sex.
That. Thank you. And some wise words for all of us to take away. So Katie, if you were to give us some wisdom, what have you maybe learned about yourself? What's something that is important to you now that might not have been? What's something you've maybe learned about yourself through this experience?
For me, it's confirmed my resilience to what comes up, especially in that period of what should have been a bit more enjoyable than what it was. I probably now, I think I finished all the treatment and got to a point and I said, I'm living my life. We're going to do what we need to do. We're going to spend more time together. We've just gone back to the same old routine. So it didn't last too long. We bought the caravan, we do little trips and that sort of thing, but you still have life routine. We could go and change bits and pieces, but you just get stuck in that same thing. To me, I say knowledge is power, and it obviously just depends on where you're getting that knowledge from. Mine was from Beck, really. We were talking, I think you'd said something before about access and resources. There was a point that you put up there. But a lot of mine came through Beck, which I'm sure a lot of you have found that. And it's what I wanted to take in. I didn't want to take in too much information and overload. But moving forward, I suppose I'm at a stage now where I'm just trying to find my sense of purpose from this. I don't want to be the person that had breast cancer or is still going through things. Where do I find that happy medium in that sense? And what do I take away from it? What do I want to get out of it? So I don't really have that key take-home thing from it because it's still an experience that I'm going through. It's not just that immediate, but I find now that I'm in this stage, a lot of those close to me don't tend to forget that you've gone through it, but it doesn't just finish because you finish treatment. It's still an ongoing thing that you've got to go through, and that people sort of, you still need that support. You don't necessarily need the meals dropped off that are great. I wish I do have a few more of those. But it's just knowing, just still acknowledging that you've gone through it as well. It's probably my thing, yeah.
And Iris, your reflections, lessons?
I think that my greatest reflections is, again, talking about the mind and noticing our inner dialogue and what do we really say to ourselves, what's really going here. When I started to meditate and practice mindfulness, I was a bit surprised of what I've noticed that is going here in the mind. I thought that I'm a kind person, and I have discovered that I've been kind to everyone else beside myself. And I remember that I had this revelation of like, oh, with this kind of inner dialogue, with this kind of criticism towards myself, with this kind of judgment, that's how you want to heal? Like regardless of chemo and other things. And I think that for me, like bringing more awareness to what's going on really here and how I can attend my emotion and turn towards my emotion and not to push them away. And also installing meaning by becoming a mindfulness and meditation teacher and offering counseling. For me, that's what really made a difference.
I love that around in your mind.
Yeah.
You're often judging yourself more than you're judging anyone else.
But I didn't know. I didn't know that that's what's going on there.
Yeah. It's very powerful. Well, we wish you both much health and love. And please thank both Katie and Iris for their incredible generosity and spirit and bravery to share with us. We know how important it is to be vulnerable, and to have you both here to do that is really special.